The background starts with my mom dying. I, 17-year-old female, was 11, and my sisters were 16 and 18. Our dad met his second wife a couple of years later, when I was 13. The expectations for my relationship with her and my sisters were very different. My sisters were expected to be civil, but if they weren't close, it was no big deal. But almost everyone, minus my sisters and minus my mom's family, expected me to see my dad's wife as some second mother or maternal parental figure. They got married when I was 14. My dad's wife wanted me to divide Mother's Day between my sisters and maternal side with her. My sisters were not expected to do the same. But she would say she wanted to celebrate the day with her child. She signed us up for mother-daughter things. She would get hurt when I didn't want to go and would never ask my sisters. I asked her before why she expected me to do these things with her, but she never invited my sisters. She said she was raising me and wanted to be a mother presence in my life, but they were grown. I told her, and my dad on separate occasions, that I didn't want or need and wouldn't accept someone else into that kind of figure. I was ignored. I had a small run-in with my sisters when Dad was getting married because I said he shouldn't, and they said he should be allowed to move on and Mom would want him happy. When I explained what was going on, they realized why I was feeling that way. They tried talking to Dad, but it did no good. My dad's side of the family would all make comments that I was lucky to have another mother figure, or how I don't seem to give her the care and consideration she deserves. They would ask why I seemed to spend no time with her of my own free will, or why I was never loving toward her. My dad told me I should show her more love and affection, and he told me I made her feel left out when I didn't tell her stuff, or when I made plans with others, but not her. I know some people would love to have someone like this in their lives, but I want the same relationship my sisters have with her. But more is expected. So Christmas Day came, and everyone was at our house for Christmas, minus my mom's family. My dad and his wife gave me a card from my parents, and my sisters got them with Dad and his wife. Then, when it became time for family photos, we got one with the three of us and Dad. But then my grandparents wanted me in the family one with my dad and his wife, but my sisters weren't expected to be in it. I tried to step out, and my dad's wife said it wasn't a family photo without their child. This was the point where I lost it, and I told her I am not her child. She is not my mother figure, that she is Dad's wife, just like she is to my sisters, and I want it to be that way. I said I do not love her, and hate how they all treat her, like she suddenly became a parent to me. My sisters were on my side, but my dad was furious, and his wife cried and cried harder as I continued. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. 11, hell 3 or 4, is old enough to have already formed a strong bond with a parent. Thinking you can just act like your mom never existed and that your stepmom is your mother is hugely disrespectful and emotionally traumatic. And not listening to you, and then trying to get all his family on board with what they were doing. A massive mistake. It sounds like she had a mother fantasy, but had missed the window to have her own kids and wanted you to fill that role. I had a friend who married a woman with a 5-year-old son. They went to therapy. The therapist said to my friend that 1, he wasn't the father, 2, to establish their own relationship and boundaries, and 3, that you were putting in this work not so that the kid would accept him now, but so that the kid would be able to have a relationship with him later. He did all that, and it worked. As the boy eventually accepted my friend, as a teen, asked him to adopt him, and took his last name. You don't get that by forcing the issue and dismissing the kid's feelings. Comment 2. Not the idiot. It's so hard for children. You mother died, and they act like she is just someone easy to replace. You spent 11 years of your life with her love, her presence, her education. She can't be replaced. Your stepmother should have let you time to appreciate her. Most people don't understand that being a mother is not just being a woman with a child in her life. It's a process, time, joy, bad moments. Children and parents make that relationship grow with lots of moments, and we do become parents with our children, and we learn from them as much as they learn from us. I don't know if this woman is a good mother, but she can't force you to be her daughter. as long as you remember your mother. And the worst to me is the way they get rid of your sisters not being part of the family. Wait, what? They are part of your father's family. More than your stepmother, of course. They are his blood. How can he get rid of them for a family photo? This part disgusts me so much. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a week since I last posted about the whole Christmas Day blow-up with my dad and his wife. I've got some updates for you, and let me tell you, it's been a roller coaster. After the confrontation, things were super tense at home. My dad was angry, his wife was hurt, and I was just exhausted from it all. But then, something unexpected happened. My oldest sister, who's always been the peacemaker in the family, sat us all down for a talk. She reminded us of how, after our mom passed, we promised to stick together no matter what. And here we were, letting these issues tear us apart. She pointed out that while our dad's wife had been overstepping, she was coming from a place of wanting to feel included in our family. My sister also reminded me of the time when I was 13, and I had that terrible flu. Dad's wife took care of me, staying up all night, even though I barely acknowledged her efforts back then. It was a moment I'd forgotten, but it showed that she did care in her own way. My sister suggested a compromise. She proposed that we set clear boundaries with Dad's wife about what I was comfortable with. No more mother-daughter events unless I initiated them, and no more pushing me to show affection I didn't feel. In return, I would try to be more open about why I felt the way I did, and give her a chance to be a part of my life in a way that didn't cross those boundaries. The talk was intense, and there were tears, but it ended with my dad's wife apologizing for pushing too hard. She admitted she just wanted to feel like she was doing a good job in this new role she found herself in. She also confessed that she felt insecure because my sisters were so independent and didn't need her. But she saw me, the youngest, as her chance to be a mother figure. My dad, who had been pretty quiet up until then, finally spoke up. He shared how hard it was for him to find love again after Mom died, and how he didn't want to lose his relationship with his daughters over this. He admitted he should have listened more and not pressured me into accepting his wife as a mother figure. So we came to an agreement. Dad's wife would back off, and I would make an effort to include her in some aspects of my life, like inviting her to my school events or having occasional lunches together, just the two of us. It was a start, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like we were all on the same page. But just when I thought things were settling down, another bombshell dropped. My middle sister, who had been quiet during the whole ordeal, revealed that she had been feeling left out. She confessed that she felt like she had lost her place in the family after Dad remarried. It was a shock to all of us, because she had always seemed so strong and unbothered. This revelation led to another family discussion, where we all agreed to work on our relationships with each other. We decided to have regular family meetings to check in on how everyone was feeling and to make sure no one felt overlooked. The past week has been a whirlwind of emotions. But it feels like we're moving in the right direction. I've had lunch with Dad's wife, just the two of us, and it was actually okay. We talked about school, my friends, and even a little about Mom. It was the first time I felt like she was listening to me rather than trying to fill a role. And as for the family photos, we decided to do a new shoot. This time, we took pictures in all sorts of combinations, including some with just me, my sisters, and Dad, and some with all of us together, Dad's wife included. It felt more balanced, and no one was singled out. Now for the next story. For Christmas, I, 29-year-old female, received a very generous check from my parents. I wasn't expecting it, and they never spend this much on gifts, so it took me by surprise. Not to give exact numbers, but it was 4 digits. I was very grateful and thanked them for their generous gift. Everything was great until the day after Christmas. My dad would come up to me multiple times and asked if I deposited the check. I told him that I would and that I could deposit it through my banking app. Well, the day goes on and I forget to deposit the check. The 27th comes along and I get home from work and my dad gets on me again and asks if I deposited the check. I told him no, and he seemed annoyed and again told me to deposit the check. Well, as you can probably guess, the day ends with me again forgetting to deposit the check. Now it's today, the 28th, and my mom texts me while I'm at work, asking if I deposited the check. I told her no, and she must have told Dad, because he started angrily texting me. I asked you to do something, and you didn't do it. I'm so upset with you, OP. It's not even funny. This is a total disrespect of me and your mom. I asked you to deposit the check, and you didn't. You know we did this because we love you, and you turn around and not deposit the check like I asked. I'm so upset. Just give me the check, and I'll deposit it in your account if you're that lazy. Ungrateful. I was shocked when I read that while at work. And I'm not going to lie, it hurt a lot. I spent most of my lunch break in tears, trying to think of a response. I love my dad a lot, but I felt like his anger was out of line and needlessly malicious. Unfortunately, while my dad is loving most of the time, he does have bouts of anger like this. Like once a year, not often at all. He never gets physical or anything, but is very loud. Eventually I texted him back saying, "Hi Dad, I'm sorry that this has made you upset. It's not that I'm ungrateful. I guess I just don't understand why this needs to be deposited right away. Especially since it hasn't even been a week since I received your very generous gift. I love you very much, and I don't want this to damage our relationship. So I think it's no longer appropriate for me to accept this check. I'll give you the check back when I get home." I thought that was the best and most mature way to reply. Maybe he'll calm down? No, he replied back with this. "OP, when I tell you to do something, I want it done. When your mom asks you to do something, you do it. Now, I want you to deposit that check today, or I will disconnect your internet. We live in the same house. I ask for the simplest thing, and you can't give that to me. I have my reasons for wanting the check cashed. You should honor my wish. As far as I'm concerned, this has damaged our relationship." I've since deposited the check like he asked, but I'm really confused. Am I really in the wrong here, or is he blowing this out of proportion? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You're the idiot. I can't imagine living with your parents at 29, and when your dad has the oh my god audacity to give you thousands of dollars, you whine and beg for sympathy on Reddit instead of taking 60 freaking seconds to deposit the check. Deposit the check and take the hint and move out if you're going to be that ungrateful and immature. What the frick? Comment 2. This was so well put, and as someone with ADHD who struggles financially, receiving a gift, although generous, that suddenly puts a task in your hands can be anxious, especially in 2023 when checks are sort of surprising. How old are you again? Trying to move out soon? Now, for the update. A lot has happened since my last post, and I've got to say, it's been a wild ride. After I deposited the check like my dad asked, things seemed to calm down for a bit, but that peace didn't last long. The next day, I overheard my parents talking in hushed tones in the kitchen. They didn't know I was home yet. My dad was saying something about the deadline and how close they were cutting it. My mom sounded worried, her voice quivering as she spoke. I couldn't make out everything, but I heard enough to know that the check they gave me was tied to something urgent. I remembered how my dad had always been the kind of person who planned everything to the last detail. He was the one who taught me how to budget, to save, to be financially responsible. So this urgency, this desperation in his voice, was out of character. Later that evening, I decided to confront them. I asked them straight up what was going on, why it was so important for me to deposit the check immediately. At first, they tried to brush it off, but I could see the stress in their eyes. They were hiding something. Finally, my dad cracked. He admitted that they were in a tight spot financially. The check they had given me was actually part of a larger sum they had set aside for an investment opportunity. They needed it deposited to meet a payment deadline. I was stunned. My parents, who had always seemed so financially stable, were in trouble. I felt a mix of emotions. I was angry that they hadn't been upfront with me, but I also understood why they might have been embarrassed to admit their situation. I had always seen them as my rock, the ones who had everything under control. The next few days were tense. I could tell my parents were walking on eggshells around me. My dad, in particular, seemed remorseful about his outburst. He had always been a proud man, and I knew it must have hurt him to reveal their financial struggles to me. But then, something unexpected happened. My dad received a call from an old business partner. I could hear the relief in his voice as he spoke. It turned out that an investment they had made years ago was finally paying off. They were going to receive a substantial amount of money, enough to cover their immediate needs, and then some. The atmosphere in the house changed overnight. My parents were visibly more relaxed, and there was an unspoken understanding between us. They had learned a valuable lesson about transparency and trust. As for me, I decided to do something with the money they had given me. I invested it in a small project I had been thinking about for a while. It was a risk, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. And then, just when I thought things were settling down, another bombshell dropped. My mom pulled me aside one evening and confessed that the reason they had been so insistent on me depositing the check was because they had wanted to use the funds to help my younger brother. He had gotten himself into some trouble, and they didn't want to tell me because they knew I had my own expenses to worry about. I was floored. My brother had always been the wild one, the one who took risks and sometimes didn't think about the consequences, but he was also the one who had my back, no matter what. I confronted him about it, and we had a long, heart-to-heart talk. He was embarrassed and apologetic, and he promised to get his act together. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, and I believed him. In the end, justice was served in a subtle way. My parents learned the importance of being honest with me, and my brother learned the consequences of his actions. As for me, I learned that family is complicated, but at the end of the day, we stick together. Now, for the next story. I, 25-year-old female, have a sister, 15-year-old female, who is my mother's daughter with her second husband. My mom married my sister's dad when I was 8, just a few months after my dad died. My parents' marriage was over pretty much when he died. I'm almost positive she was with my sister's dad before my dad died and before the marriage was basically over. But their marriage was terrible, so maybe it doesn't matter. I'm not sure if my dad would have even cared at the point when he died. They were not good together. My mom's husband, who is my sister's dad, is my stepdad, but really, he's my mom's husband. I'm not close to him. I don't have much to say about him. I think he can be a jerk, but he's good to my mom and good to my sister and brother. 12-year-old male. He would have adopted me and been good to me, but he's not someone I would have wanted to be adopted by if I wanted to be adopted. It's a lot about him as a person and his views and stuff he says about people, and somewhat about him not being so great about my dad after he and mom got married. But I digress. My sister knows I don't really have much of a relationship with her dad. I do the bare minimum, and if mom died tomorrow or they divorced tomorrow, I wouldn't remain in touch with him. He knows it. Mom knows it. My siblings at least pick up on it. I gave my son a name that honors not just my dad, but my aunts, uncles, and grandparents too. It's a name that connects to the family as a whole, but gives him his own identity, and is also a name that we, my husband and I, love. After my son was born, my sister made some comments that I should have honored her dad in his name somehow. I told her that wasn't something we wanted to do, but she could always do so in the future if she wanted. She did not let it drop. She mentioned it every time I saw her for the next month. When I did not give in and add a different middle name or change his name completely, she told me her dad was upset that we honored my dad and his side of the family, but didn't honor him at all. I told her again, she could always do it. I told my mom and her husband they needed to speak to my sister and tell her to stop mentioning it. And I told him to stop letting my sister know he hates not being honored. They didn't listen. And just before Christmas, my sister came over to tell me yet again that her dad wanted to be honored in my son's name, and hates that he wasn't, and that he feels hurt. I told her I don't care what her dad wants. He's not my dad, and I honored my dad and my paternal family, and that's my right when my son is mine and my husband's child. I told her to honor her own dad when she has kids, if she wants. She got really upset and told me I should care about what her dad wants because he has been my dad too since I was 8, and I shouldn't dismiss him so easily. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She needs a reality check. 1. This man was very likely cheating with your mom. Even if your parents' marriage was dying, if he didn't actually consent to an open marriage, it's cheating, and in my opinion, awful. 2. He is not your dad. Never has been, never will be. It's utterly ridiculous to think he'd be honored. I would tell your sister straight up if she mentions it again. She won't be invited over as she's disrespecting you and your family. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Plenty of people honor their family and loved ones in the way you did, especially when the loved one has passed away. On a certain level, I can understand the stepdad feeling hurt and left out, but nagging you about it won't help matters. Perhaps your tone toward the 15-year-old could have been a little less harsh, but really, she needs to cut it out, as you've made a decision you had every right to make. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a wild week, and I've got quite the update for you all. So, after I told my sister I didn't care what her dad wanted regarding my son's name, things went from tense to explosive. My mom caught wind of the argument and decided to intervene. She sat us all down for a family meeting, which honestly felt more like a trial with her as the judge. My stepdad, who I've always felt was a bit of a jerk, was surprisingly quiet during the whole thing. I guess he realized he'd stirred up enough trouble already. Now, let me give you some context about my mom. She's always been the peacemaker in the family, trying to smooth over any rough patches. But this time, she was fuming. She told my sister that she was out of line for pressuring me and that my stepdad should have never let her think it was okay to keep pushing the issue. The meeting ended with my sister in tears, my mom frustrated, and my stepdad looking like he wanted to be anywhere but there. I thought that would be the end of it. But oh, was I wrong. A couple of days later, my brother, who's usually the quiet one, came to me and said he overheard my stepdad talking on the phone. Apparently, he was telling someone how he felt like an outsider in his own family, and that my son's name was just another reminder of that. I felt a pang of guilt, but I reminded myself that he and I never had that father-daughter bond. The next jaw-dropping moment came when my sister approached me with a tear-stained apology. She admitted that she had been trying to get our stepdad's approval by pushing his name into my son's life. She confessed that she felt caught in the middle, wanting to please both her dad and me. I was taken aback by her honesty and vulnerability. It was a side of her I hadn't seen before. We had a heart-to-heart, and I reassured her that she didn't need to fight her dad's battles or earn his love that way. Just when I thought we could all move on, my stepdad did something unexpected. He asked to speak to me alone. We sat down, and he opened up about how he felt when he first joined our family. He admitted that he could have been more sensitive about my dad's memory, and that he regretted not building a better relationship with me. Hearing him acknowledge his past mistakes was a surprise, to say the least. It didn't erase the years of tension, but it was a start. We agreed to try and be more understanding of each other moving forward. But here's where the misunderstanding comes in. My husband, bless his heart, decided to surprise me by getting a small tattoo of our son's initials. He thought it would be a sweet gesture, showing his love for our little family. When my sister saw it, she jumped to the conclusion that the initials included a hidden tribute to our stepdad, since one of the letters matched the first letter of his name. She excitedly told everyone that we had changed our minds and decided to honor our stepdad after all. My stepdad was over the moon, thinking this was some sort of olive branch. I had to sit everyone down once again and explain that the tattoo was just our son's initials and had nothing to do with my stepdad. The look of disappointment on my stepdad's face was hard to bear, and my sister was embarrassed for getting everyone's hopes up. I felt terrible for the mix-up, even though it wasn't my fault. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.